Welcome, everybody, to the Masterclass. It's up to you to stop. I love that name because it kind of really encompasses the very clear, clarifying direction that we want to take in the relationships that are most challenging for us. So this masterclass was really inspired from so many of the beautiful people that I'm working with at the moment in the mentorship space, and this really deep exploration that is happening where we're really in a space to be putting under the microscope, I suppose, how we're relating as a portal to evolution. And as we go into that microscopic view, we're no longer able to simply project a level of blame or shame or unconsciousness in our relationships because they're all holographically reflecting who we are. So if these relationships are continuing in your life, there's no need to shame or blame or guilt yourself. It's just that there's an opening. There's a massive opening there to do some radical reflection and transformational work. But the thing is, what I've really found is that even though there's a couple of steps to this, I suppose, even though we can really admit that we don't like those relationships, we can honestly say, and we probably, most of you can really think about how you energize the relationship by talking about how much you don't like that relationship. So this kind of ongoing dialogue that you have with close friends and family about that person that you don't like. And if you're not talking about it externally, maybe that it's that really persistent, ongoing internal dialogue about how you feel like this relationship really is not good for you. You feel like you're a victim to it. You feel like it's not serving you. You feel like you can't find a way forward in it. It feels like a trap that every way you turn, something is blocked for you. And you're verbalizing that, or you're internally talking about that constantly. And you're deeply in that state of just on repeat, on that on repeat cycle of how bad that is for you. And then you're getting to a point whereby you know that you want to change it because it's not healthy, it's not serving you, it's not actually allowing you to have the authentic expression you want in that relationship, because it doesn't matter what you say, it feels like it's shut down, or it's blocked from being heard, or it gets misconstrued and then an argument happens, or you feel yourself actually not wanting to express. It's like you give up. It's like you have to be there in that space, but nothing in you feels like it's safe to be in expression. So you're feeling that and you're thinking that and you're verbalizing how this relationship's really tough for you, and you can see the pattern of it. But in saying that, it's almost like it's a vortex and it keeps sucking you in. It's like, I don't want to be a part of that, but there's something unconscious in you that goes, you know what? I need to check in on what that person's doing, or I need to stay in connection with that person, or I just need to send them a message because it's going to be different this time. Or they're a family member and you have to see them because they're connected. And you know, though, that there's this vortex that's spinning around you and around them that's actually just going to drain your energy and essence into that repetitive pattern. And what I really want to bring a very, very, I suppose, critical attention to, and those that do the deep work with me know about this process, but for those of you that don't and are just kind of getting into this work, is how are you actually participating and consciously showing up in this relationship? What are you doing over and over and over again in your thought patterns about this relationship, in your emotionally addictive patterns about this relationship, and your behaviors? So what is so important is for you to discern your participation. Because what happens is we seem to be able to really get very clear on how that other person is operating. And that feels like a threat to us on so many levels. So we're in a really deep survival mode. But when we're in survival mode, it's almost like we're unconscious to what our role is in the survival state. And that's kind of a protective mechanism, because to be able to actually really fully consciously look at what we're doing, it feels quite confronting. You actually have to be quite brave to really own what is it that you're doing that's participating in this. Now, one of the things I really need you to be conscious of when you're actually beginning to review the stages of your participation, which is step one, which is absolutely critical for you to move out of this relationship. You need to know how you are consciously participating. As you become aware of how you're consciously participating, you're going to be able to identify where your triggers are. Now, your triggers are some of the most vital information about where you are still not whole and healed and connected and programmed for your own sense of completion and authenticity. So they're showing you the places, where you are disconnected, where you're separate from yourself, where your self-worth is potentially not fully activated, where you're feeling that deep sense of not being loved in that relationship, where you're feeling really an unworthiness. It doesn't matter what you do, you're never good enough. And it doesn't matter what you say because you're always misunderstood. And so that deep, deep wounding is continually being activated via the triggers of this relationship. So what I want you to really honor and see is this relationship is serving you. You are still participating in it because it's still showing you those triggers. If you didn't have this relationship activated in your life, it would mean that you've moved beyond those triggers and that you're in a state of completion. But if it's still there, it's a divine mirror that it's time to do some deeper work. So those triggers are really important to witness because they're also a massive part of our addictive experience with that person. We know reliably what we need to say and do and how we need to act to get a reaction from that person that gives us access to our triggers. I know that if you thought of that person that triggers you most, you could almost like clockwork tell me exactly what you do to get them to arc up into their activated nervous system response and be that they walk away from you or they become more confrontational with you. And you can probably tell exactly how to do that. So why is it we would want to activate your own trigger and someone else's trigger? Well, this is part of confirming the known relationship with this person. And the known means that you have a level of safety in that relationship that is ultimately predictable. So it doesn't matter how unsafe it makes you feel on the surface, how much you don't like it, how much it's not aligned to your values, how much you wish it would end or change or be different. I need you to acknowledge that there's something very powerful in that person being highly predictable for you. They create a known reality for you in the interface that gives you a known biological, chemical, emotional, physical, mental response in yourself. So this concept that that person is actually a problem for you is where we need to challenge this. That person is giving you the gift of a committed, known reality, and you're participating in it together. I want to go a layer deeper on that. Why is it that we would want to commit to having this ongoing triggered experience with this person? So what is actually happening is that we're experiencing something I call holographic identity commitment. Holographic Identity Commitment. This is that there's an unconscious part of you that is wanting this person in front of you to play out a predictable pattern in your life. Now, how this can happen is that every individual on the planet is a multidimensional holographic being. And that means, in simple terms, each and every one of us views every single other person differently. So if you and I were standing together and we were looking at, say, a woman in a store that we both knew, that we've both been, in contact with, that maybe a friend of ours, my perception of who that woman is will really be coded into how I perceive her from my own lens. I might think she's an amazing woman. She does these incredible, things. She's got kids and she's a great mum. Your perception, for example, with that woman could be that you've heard this thing about she's having an affair and that's triggering you because that's against your values, and you see her as being a woman that's, not in integrity, and it goes on. Or someone else might see her and be like her child, and her child sees her as being a difficult mum, being someone that he can't really connect with. Or her father could see her as this amazing golden child. Everyone around you is witnessing you from their own lens of who they need you to be to process the internal patterning, the internal lens, the internal concept of how they believe reality is. So we're here together so we can do this holographic dance of shining our template or our lens onto another human, having that reflected back, and then having to work with what's reflected back as a pathway of evolution. So in these difficult relationships, you're actually not looking at that human. You're looking at the projection of your own wounding onto that human, of how that human appears to be able to trigger very specific parts of you that cause you a huge amount of pain. And the really powerful thing in witnessing that is that person in front of you will be an imprint of the painful relationships that have come before. So say, for example, I'm going to move into more a relationship example. Say you're having a lot of trouble with your partner, and the imprint and the lens that you're using to perceive your partner is going to most likely be a parental lens, because the attachment bonds that you're projecting onto your partner were developed via that wound bond that we developed with our parents, and that isn't quite resolved. Or it's not the wound bond, but it's the projection of that person's so wonderful and can do no wrong, that also creates an illusion that we can't really see who they are because we're trying to idolize them like we did our parents. Either way, whatever the subtle programming is, it's about you seeing this person through that particular lens. So when we do that, we create limited versions, but we also create loops, because we keep attracting people that we can imprint on, that keep showing up in ways we expect them to show up from our lens. And when they keep showing up in that way, we keep getting the same reality outcomes. And the fascinating thing about that is that you can see that one person, say you have a partner and then you break up and they go on to have a relationship with someone else, and you're like, well, hold on a minute. How come that issue is not recurring with that person, with my ex-partner? Well, that's because that's not their template. They'll have another template that they're playing out. So we're all in contribution to bringing forth the templates or the patterns that are coming out of our pain. What's really important to understand about this is that the pain has a massive relationship to fear. So this brings me to the question, why can't we end the relationships that are most challenging for us? Why do we keep bringing them in and cycling them around and around and around? That's because we're in a massive state of fear. And especially with your family relationships, the identity commitment you have to being a certain way in those relationships, to showing up as a certain version of you for these people is huge. Subsequently, your fear to change your internal being and to show up differently means that you're going to fear that you're no longer going to have a relationship with that person. And that's because you've only ever known the relationship that's being based on your internal levels of pain. So the separation within you has created the perpetual separation in the relationship with them. So for you to want to break the bond of that relationship and show up differently means you're going to have to go through a massive portal of fear. Because if you're not showing up to experience the unconscious behavior, the judgment, the criticism, codependence, the guilt, the violence, the sense of being disinterested with that person, you're in a greater sense of fear of not having the predictable relationship than you are of breaking those patterns. And this can be not just for family. This can be for close friends, for partners, for anybody. So that deep, deep level of fear is the level of fear that we develop because we don't want to move beyond the container of the identity creation that we've created. Because if we move beyond it and we break that fear matrix, so we stretch our nervous system, we stretch our levels of expression, we stretch into our alignment, we stretch into our authenticity, then what's going to happen is we're no longer going to hold the bond that's kept us in those separated places. And we're going to have to go through some of the pain of how that relationship's really been for you. And that's when we really need to show up and witness and really acknowledge what level of pain is in me, is in you in that relationship. How much have you abandoned or betrayed yourself to stay in that relationship? How much pain has there been because you have kept going with the addictive cycle of connecting with that person instead of aligning to the truth that this is not okay for you? This is not okay for you. And how in avoidance have you been to that really deep anger, or I like to call it the sacred rage, that just says, you know what? This is no longer going to work for me. So meeting that part of yourself, meeting the part of you that's being in suppression and repression, or very committed to acting out and trying to manipulate and make things different and make things better for yourself, meeting that part of you takes a lot of courage and a lot of consciousness. And to be honest, a lot of support, which is what we do in the container. It's that continual support to know that this is no longer okay for you. Now, I want to talk to you about when you begin to witness that you're in an addictive behavioral pattern, that you are very much participating and contributing to the ongoing essence of that relationship, that you are holographically witnessing that person as a fractal of the painful relationships that have come before that, and that you're also playing a role for that person that you're in relationship with in playing a role for them where they want you to be the target of their pain. So it's like they have the unresolved aspect of them that they want to see you as the partner that cheats on them when you're loyal, or they want to see you as the daughter that doesn't care about you and doesn't make you feel enough in your mothering or your parenting. They want to see you as the friend that actually gives less than you give. They want to see you as all that. Whatever that program is, they want to see you as that, and they want to trap you in that because that's the wound born that serves you. So when you're conscious of this, and when you know that this is happening, and that you know that it's actually your full responsibility to stop the participation, there's a really, really important aspect to this. That you need to firstly stop the participation of the relationship of separation within yourself. You can't project anymore and go, why can't you be this for me? Why can't you resolve this for me? Why can't you make this better for me? Why can't you change this for me? Why can't you show up for me? I've acknowledged this isn't working. Why can't you do that? That's never gonna get you anywhere. Yeah. You are the one that's going to have to give yourself completion in this relationship. And in doing so, you have to flip that level of fear. That fear that if you show up authentically with an inner boundary with that person, that you might be rejected, you might be abandoned, you might be discarded. They might get really angry at you because you're no longer committing to show up in the ways they've always seen you show up. They might cut you off from an experience you wanted to have with them. All of those things are things that you have to actually alchemize within your being, because you're holding on to an external relationship that's promising you those things at the expense of your true relationship with yourself. So what happens is we fear stopping that flow or that connective relationship because we think we're going to miss out on something. We've been programmed to believe that person is going to offer that thing to us if we comply, if we keep going, if we keep showing up the way we always have. But it's bullshit. And oftentimes, the conditionality of that relationship is so much greater than the alignment. The conditions, the unspoken conditions. If you show up like this, I will do this for you. If you don't show up like this, I will withdraw, I will punish, I will threaten, I will abandon. Is that the kind of relationship you want to have? And when you get to that point of going, no, I don't want that relationship, you're going to have to flip it and reverse it and see where that relationship lies within you. Where have you been willing to abandon yourself? Where have you been willing to betray your values to contribute to this relationship? Where have you been favoring the material, the experience, the job, the money, the outing, the being included to go places, the thing that you get if you keep that relationship alive? Where are you prizing an external experience more than your own internal value? These are the deep questions we go through in the container, the deep reflections about what is it you think you're going to lose if you don't honor if you don't honor yourself and you honor the relationship. What's the trade-off? And becoming clear that that is only the illusion that's holding you in this matrix of this relationship is the most liberating force, because you then see that actually the illusion of safety, that thing that I think that person gives me, it's actually not real. That thing I want from them is actually what I've always been craving from myself. And particularly when I work with people that are in romantic relationships that do not serve them. It's like you're seeking addictively for that person to show you something that they aren't capable of giving you because you haven't set the template of giving it to yourself. And then in familial relationships, it's like you want to be heard, you want to be understood, you want to be respected, you want to have a voice, but you've never given yourself a voice in that dynamic that's being aligned to you. You've always been in fear of that, about what they'll think, what they'll say. Will you be on the out? It's about taking back that energy, taking back that power and going, I'm going to give myself that voice. I'm going to hear myself and my own needs. I'm going to honor that for me. And so when we get to that point of doing that really deep inner alignment work, and it's big work, and it takes a lot because we're having to reverse the energetic cycle of our energy being committed externally to our energy being committed internally. And that sounds like a couple of words, but that switch over from an external energetic commitment to an internal energetic commitment is the most massive piece for all of humanity right now. When you shift your energetic current to be self-sourced, whole, connected, aligned within, that bond to needing that person to keep feeding your addictions, you don't need it anymore. Yet, what it does do is it catapults you into a level of authentic connection that is profound. You will get people resisting you. You will get people wanting to move away from you. You will get chaos. You will get a shift in your reality whereby all of those people that you've aligned to from the version of you that's being in separation and fear and pain, they are not necessarily here for this level of evolution with you in this moment. But what they are here for is your authenticity. And when you're authentically showing up with the humans you care about, there is something very divine that happens in the field, in the relational field. It's almost like you develop a level of coherence that's based on your inner boundaries, your inner sense of knowing where you need to place yourself, of knowing where you need to show up, of knowing where you need to hold firm, of knowing where you need to honor yourself and let it go. And that divine space gives full permission for others to begin to evolve, because they can't stay the same version that you kept wanting to see them as. They simply can't anymore. You've taken that away. So of course they're going to respond in a way that's like shocked. They're going to be like, what? Where is that old being that I know that's going to give me all my good triggers? Why can't I prod them and get the same stuff? It's like, well, that version of me isn't here. And if you're still looking for the addiction, often what will happen is they'll go and find that elsewhere. They'll find a replacement whereby they can keep those addictive patterns going. And others will be like, oh my gosh, the level of integrity, authenticity, and open communication you bring just allows me to be in understanding of what's going on here. So when it stops with you, there's a really important space where you need to be often brave enough to give the relationship some breathing space. It's not like you can shift the energetics always in constant, ongoing connection and pushing. It's often a really clear expression that I'm really conscious right now that the pattern that we're in isn't serving us, and it's especially not serving me. So I need to take a little space to really check in, tune in, and really align to what I need out of this relationship. And I also invite you to do the same. And for those special, really valuable family relationships, it's an ongoing, I suppose, exploration, if the other person is willing, about how to find a new way of communicating, how to find new ways of being. And that's something you can be really open to and welcoming of. And for those people that were meant to be in your life for this evolution to occur, sometimes it's just really important to put in firm, inner, protective, energetic boundaries for you. And feel safe to do that. To go, right now, I need the space and time and clarity that I just need to go within and have that space to do that without that relationship drawing me out of myself. And that's okay. And you can say that, you can express that clearly. You can let people know, I'm taking a break. I'm grateful for you, I'm taking a break. And you can enforce that. That's your role, to enforce that break. And that break is giving you both space to reassess. And it's really an important aspect. And this is not a break as in like that kind of cancel culture of like, you're out, you're in. It's actually just a releasing of the energy that's kept you in that really tight, wounded bond that needs to crack open. And then something new from that chaos needs to form. So I really feel that this work is so important. It's so critical for everyone to begin to really sink into. And the gift in that is that you'll begin to feel a flow-on effect with everybody around you. As you begin to do this work, as you step into this deeper work, it's like you become kind of like a beacon of light of that authenticity. It's this really beautiful flow-on effect. And I find the people that work with me have a ripple effect in their communities, in their families. There's no longer this sense of having to show up in a way that feels forced or misaligned or triggered. And that's because you've invested so deeply in clearing that within you, knowing that the holographic imprint in someone else is only going to be your responsibility. And also knowing that if that person's not ready for that evolution with you, it's safe to take space. It's not unloving to really honor your inner boundaries. It's absolutely critical. So I hope this has been helpful for you all. And I'm really excited to connect with those that are hearing this for the first time and really taking time to explore. So I really encourage you to reach out. It's deep work, it's meaningful work, it's scary work, because you have to be super brave to break those bonds and to go into the unknown of a relationship you haven't ever imagined with yourself and with others. So thank you for joining me, and I can't wait to talk to you all soon.